Hey beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. What are 3 books that I think could really be beneficial to supporting your overall mental health, mind, body, and spirit? My name is Crystal Turner. I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner who has gone holistic because I know to be whole is to be healed. And in this video, I do want to share 3 books that I think are really important, have been important in helping me shape my mental well-being, and they continue to help shape my mental well-being. I think that books are really important addition that we can add to our life, especially when we talk about self-development and growth. Oftentimes we read books that are for entertainment, but there are also books that we can read that can be developing to us, that we can take that information in, we can reflect on it, we can think about what is true for us from that information, and we can then determine how could we apply some of the concepts that might be shared in those books to see how it shows up different and has us show up different in our life. And as I always speak, when it comes to any part of us, our mind, our body, and our spirit are all very important parts of the whole of who we are. There's no such thing as having extremely great mental health, but having very poor physical health, or extremely great spiritual self and a very terrible mindset. I think that they all complement each other. They all contribute to each other in either direction, for the better or for worse. And so I have 3 books that I want to share, one for each portion of us, one book for that I've used that I like that's really supportive of the mind, one supportive of the spirit, one supportive of our physical self. And in my mind, all these parts of us are important. You know, all of them are really spiritual, but I think the strongest part of us, obviously, is our spirit. And the most fragile part of us is our body, but it doesn't take away from how much our body can help us in this spiritual experience that we're having, which we call life. And so I'm going to share first a book that I have really enjoyed that I think is important for supporting our physical body in a way that also helps our mental well-being and our emotional health, our mental health. And that book is from a psychiatrist. Her name is Archina Stein, and the name of the book is What If It's Not Depression? What If It's Not Depression? I really like this book because it really speaks to the idea that when we go to a doctor, and in Western medicine, it is important to be diagnosed with a condition in order to then justify giving medications to treat that diagnosis. And I really appreciate this book, What If It's Not Depression? Because what she's talking about in this book is that depression is a symptom of a deeper issue. She comes from a functional medicine lens, and in functional medicine, that is a big part of the principles of functional medicine, is really getting to the why behind what a person is experiencing. So basically, depression isn't the end of the story. Depression isn't the root issue. Depression is a symptom of something deeper. And so she talks a lot about different reasons that a person could be experiencing depression. What's deeper than the depression that could be contributing to this symptom of depression? Because there could be so many other symptoms that you're experiencing along with depression that are all a part of something different or something deeper. When we really get to the root of many of our ailments, there can be a major contributor, and it can be expressed in different ways. So for some people, it may be expressed with depression, it may be expressed with anxiety, it could be expressed with insomnia, it could be expressed with anger. You know, these things are signaling us, when you come from a functional medicine lens, to think deeper. And so the goal is to be really more empowered to understand that there are other things that you actually can do, that we actually can do within our life to help support our mental health. And we don't only have to be dependent on a medical system. And we have to sometimes think about the medical systems and what, the idea of being dependent on a medical system. It's one thing for a medical system to support you to become your most independent self, as opposed to being part of a medical system that causes you to have to come back to them for everything. So what if it's not depression? This is a book I think that is great to support your physical body and how it can then support your mental well-being. The second portion of ourself that I think is very powerful, because they're all very powerful, but I see them in levels, and this is just my view. I think our mindset and our mind, our thoughts, are a huge contributor to our emotions, and our emotions then impacts how we feel. So we could say it two ways. Sometimes people are feeling a certain way, and based on how we feel, it influences the thoughts we have. But then there also is when we are having certain thoughts, it is influencing how we feel. So they bounce back off of each other. So really this way of understanding how to grab hold of your mindset and the way you think and the things that you're thinking can really be beneficial in, first of all, giving you peace of mind in your days, peace of mind in certain situations, and not getting stressed out over things that oftentimes in 20 years don't even make a difference anymore. So the book that I have come to love, that I've read, is The 4 Agreements. A lot of people have heard of this book. One of the reasons I really love this book is because it is such an easy read. It is very practical, it's straight to the point, and it really talks about 4 different pillars of how we can be agreeable within ourselves, to understand how we don't have to take things so personally from other people, and how we can really shift our power back to ourselves when we're dealing with the dynamics in life that everyone will deal with. But this book helps to have a perspective and a view and a way to open your mind and understand to not let these things be what determines how you enjoy life or how you suffer in life. So The 4 Agreements is very practical. It's a very easy read. It makes a lot of sense. And I do think that if you look at these principles that it talks about, you can really be mindful. The way that they've created it, I think you can be mindful very easily, and to remember these principles and to let them be a part of the challenges that you experience, and allow them to shift you from allowing these challenges to overtake how you're feeling. So my last book is talking from a spiritual standpoint. This book is really special to me because when I picked this book up, the first time I heard of this book, there is a minister, his name is Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith. He mentioned this book. I've heard him mention this book before, and he mentioned the author, Melodoma Some, and he mentioned him, and then I remember I was in a particular metaphysical bookstore, and the book was there, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this book. Like, when I saw it, I instantly remembered him mentioning it, and I wanted to read it. And the reason that this book is so special to me is because I had a lot of pushback from people in my life not wanting me to read the book in the midst of me reading it. So it took me some time to actually get through this book, because it was trying to appease other people who tried to put their opinion that this book is, something negative about it or something evil about the book, and not allowing myself to be controlled by someone else's belief system, and being comfortable enough to go through reading this book and finding out for myself how I felt. And I'm so glad I did, because it is a very powerful book. The name of this book is Of Water and Spirit, and it's by Melodoma Some. Did I say his name? Yeah, I said his name correct. And this book is it was so empowering, because I had people who maybe they were religious, and they felt based on their religion that I shouldn't read this book. And it was so interesting, because a big part of how this book started is this author was writing about, I believe it was his story, where he grew up in Africa and in the traditions of that place. And then there were missionaries who came into the space, and they were outside of the village, but they came and they started to bring their belief systems into the space. And it influenced this person's father. I'm not going to give too much away, but it did influence the author's father, and it impacted his life because he ended up moving out of the village and going away into more westernized civilization and losing a lot of what he had learned from his traditional land, because there were these Catholic priests who were telling him or telling his family that the practices that they were doing were wrong. And so he went away and went to learn and get educated in Western culture, and lost a lot of his own spiritual practices that were part of his culture. And so when he came back to his land, it was all about him refining himself, and not allowing someone else to bring their cultural beliefs to him and take away his power, because really in the end he found so much power back in who it was that he really was. And it was just, I really felt that it was so fitting and powerful, because in the midst of me wanting to read this, I could have turned away from it and took someone else's belief system who says, you know, that's not correct. And I could have missed out on the powerful story that was shared here and how they transformed spiritually because they went back to what was natural to them. And I think that this is so important because sometimes, or oftentimes for a lot of Black people especially, and some other people of color, people can come into your space and try and tell you what's better or what's right, as opposed to you trusting your own intuition and being okay with exploring spiritually what makes sense to you, so that you can ultimately be connected to the divine, be connected to source, be connected to a higher power. And that, I think, when we are there in our life, there's nothing that happens in this physical life that can knock down when we are in that higher self of spirit, you know, because we understand that we're beyond the things that happen to us physically. And so, you know, even in Western psychiatry, when they talk about people who have religions, that a lot of people who practice a religion, it tends to help their mental health, because really it's not because of the specific religion. It seems to be more because it's about understanding that there's something larger than them, you know, so it's not feeling like everything is completely on you. And so I don't think that you have to do this from being in a religion. I think it's just understanding that your spiritual practices are something that help you to connect to the larger meaning of life. And sometimes when we do that, the things that were going on in the current moment, it can give us a broader perspective, and it can help us navigate it more. It can help us to have understanding, and it can help us to, in many situations, see that the difficult things that we're going through are transforming us to be more in our spiritual self, or in that portion of us, and not just only so much in this physical experience that we're having. So that, for this book of Water and Spirit, is just beautiful, just beautiful. So I don't know if any of these are interesting to you. If they are, if there's one book that you think you would want to explore more, share in the comments which book that would be. Or if there's a book that you feel like has really been helpful for your own mental health, share that in the comments. So, because then that gives everybody more selection of literature that we can connect with, especially in a time when we are really in this technology overload. There can be a real gift in turning all that off, sitting with a book and escaping into that world for a moment, you know, and getting a lot of insight, taking it in, reflecting on it, and allowing it to be a part of the most important book in your life to write and transform that's the book of you, your own personal book of life. Those are the things that really are most important, that we take these things to understand ourselves more and to continue to write our story throughout this journey of life that we're all taking. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I look forward to being back in my next video. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Take care.